Good morning everybody. Due to popular demand, I'm back down here shooting Kingfishers at Powatahanui Inlet. I guess I'll just have a run through of the general things that I've learned, and we'll just take some videos and photos of Kingfishers this morning. So for bird photography, it's best to have your camera off a tripod, handheld, and say the bird were sitting on a branch and diving for crabs. You could focus with the back button focus on the bird sitting in the branch, and that allows you to sort of free up so your time. So if you notice he's going to dive, it's already sort of pre-focused. When you're zoomed out, obviously you can track him easier because he'll be somewhere in the screen. Clearly when you're zoomed in, it's a bit hard to, I guess, find the subject. And then when he does dive, if your camera is powerful enough, you can track it all the way down, zoom in if you need to. So I'm going to put my camera back on the tripod because with this setup, the 180 to 600 and the 2x teleconverter, it's really just good for those still subjects when the bird is, say, perched. I guess you can loosen up the gimbal, or the what's called the ball head on your tripod, and have some amount of stiffness to free flow, move the camera about. This camera setup probably isn't the best for the birds in flight. As you know already, at 600 millimeters with the 2x converter, the f-stop goes as open as f13. Therefore, the ISO has to be reasonably high, particularly early morning, like it is at the moment. It's just gone 8 o'clock. And if the bird is just sitting, perched, then you can open up the shutter. But if you're hoping to get the bird in flight, you're obviously wanting some shutter speed above like 3200, or I guess ideally around 4000. I've got the vibration reduction on sport mode, and the release mode is in continuous high extended. What is nice is that with all this reach, with the lens and teleconverter, you can actually see these wee birds. It's just a bit difficult when it comes to photographing them, I guess, when they're moving. So because this bird is just perched, and I don't really plan on getting him sort of frozen as he flies about, I'm going to drop my ISO back down to something a little bit more reasonable, workable. Yes. So one big question you might have is which autofocus setting to put the camera into. And I tend to go from either one of two settings, just a dynamic area mode, or a subject detect mode. My camera doesn't have like a bird detect autofocus, which is a shame. A lot of cameras, or the model ones, do. So I would suggest trying that one first. And if you're wondering, that's just my phone sitting on top. I'm going to record a little bit of the screen of the camera as I shoot. So it's important that you find a spot where there are some kingfishers. Down here at Powatahanui Inlet, there's a pretty common spot where you're almost guaranteed to have kingfishers. They're here throughout the day, but most likely to be diving for crabs around high tide or just before high tide. That's generally around midday. It's important to have a few spots where you can just sit and relax whilst taking photos of kingfishers. So typically here there's a seat over by the car. Some people sit around there. Otherwise people come down to the water's edge and sort of perch on the side down this way. A couple of people even bring their seats, like camping chairs, to sit on, which is pretty cool. Picking the conditions is important. You want a nice calm day, one where there's lots of light, particularly if you have that long reach lens and the teleconverter on. More light, almost the better. But having some nice diffuse lighting from a cloudy, overcast sky is worthwhile too. If it gets a little bit too choppy, the birds find it just is a bit harder to see the crabs, I suppose. So when the water is nice and calm, that's a good time to be out here photographing them. So down here you can see that there are little logs where people have been sitting. It's low tide at the moment. When it is high tide, all this area here is covered in water. You can see that someone has a stick, and I guess when it's out, the birds can go and sit on it. So let's go and pop it out here. It'll probably be okay. Hopefully it doesn't fall over. Oh gosh, it might fall over. Anyway, over on this side, you can see that stick that has been, I guess, fixed to the ground is still there. And we'll just have a wee sort of pan around and you can see just how beautiful the space is. It really is such a nice spot just to sit and hang out. If we look up, this is the main tree that the kingfishers sit in. And then they sort of swoop down, dive into the water, grab the crab, and then, I guess, get back up into the tree. It's good to be able to recognise when to point the camera in preparation to take a photo of the kingfisher. One, I guess, sign to recognise is when the kingfisher starts bobbing, or if they've just dived and got a crab, often they'll regurgitate the shell of the crab, so you'll see that come out. So both those signs would be a good time to point your camera back at the kingfisher. In previous videos, I went out through the mud flats, but I don't think I really need to do this anymore. One, saves your feet getting muddy, but two, the high tide comes in and the birds sort of follow the high tide, so there's no need to kind of venture out unless you're really time constrained or you don't mind heading out that far. What I thought I'd do today obviously is shoot some video and photos of the birds with the 180 to 600 and the 2x teleconverter. But as the tide comes up and the birds get closer, I'm going to get rid of that teleconverter and just shoot, I guess, with the lens. Generally, photographers shoot with a slightly shorter lens or focal length, and then they crop in nice and tight. And I guess, yeah, I'm just getting used to that idea, because these birds are pretty small. So you also want them in the frame because they move pretty quick. So you might not be able to see, but I'm going to point out a kingfisher. If I can zoom in. Where is he? He is, oh, where's my finger? Somewhere just over there. And if we go around a bit further, on that rock Well, actually, I think it might be a log, but it doesn't seem to float at high tide, so one or the other. There's another kingfisher. Okay, so that's the lay of the land. I'm going to head back out to the seat by the car, just hang out there for a wee while and wait. Okay, so I thought I'd show you the range. So on the lens with the 2x teleconverter at 180, this is what it looks like. And when we zoom in through to 600, which is actually 1200 millimeters, this is what it looks like. With the video, I'm showing you from the camera, there is a slight crop. Alright, so it's about 8:45, high tide is around 12 or 12:30, so I'm going to put this down and just have a wee walk around. I might leave the tripod and things here. There are 3 kingfisher directly behind the camera, over a bit yonder though, so just I guess have a little walk and shoot. Don't really anticipate I'll get any good shots, but if I do, I'll post them at the end. Okay, so I'm back from my little wander. I just took the camera, left the tripod here, so there's some handheld video and some photos. When photographing birds, it pays to get nice and low. It's a nice viewing angle. If you get the bird and some, I guess, of its environment, even better, rather than just a tight shot of the bird or its head. Yeah, a mixture of shots is nice. When I shoot, I guess with this lens and whether the teleconverter is on or not, I try not to stop down anymore because it's dark enough, and I think you do lose a bit of image quality. And the other thing is I take more photos than I think I need to. So with the burst mode, generally I sort of hold my finger, and in some of the shots it'll be more likely to be tactile and in focus. Yeah, so that's how I've done photography so far. It's just gone 9 o'clock. So yeah, I've got heaps of time. So I might just sort of sit around for a little bit. Again, tide is coming in very slowly. There's just a little ripple on the water. But overall, conditions are pretty good this morning. And so far, no one else has arrived. I do love having a location all to myself. Alright, so we've been photographing kingfishers. The money shot is when the bird is diving beak first into the water, and then the moments when it comes out of the water and say the water is just sort of falling off the body and there's a ripple around the bird. And that other brief moment after when I guess they've just lifted away from the water and you can see the crab in the bird's mouth. So those are the sort of shots I'm hoping to get a bit later on. Well, I can see here two kingfishers sitting on a branch, and they're just looking down into the mud, hanging out. The water is just behind them, and I guess in an hour or two, well, 9:15, 10, 11, 2 or 3 hours, the water will be high enough and I'll be hopefully on the branch that I set out. Under the right conditions, like when this lens setup is on a tripod, you can get some pretty good video footage, so that's quite nice. Alright, I think it's time for me to put the tripod back in the car. I'll of course hang around, but my camera also needs a new battery. And I dropped this L plate with the camera on it a few months ago, so I need to take it all off to get the battery out. So it's a bummer, but we'll do that now before all the action starts. So as it turns out, you don't actually need an L bracket on your camera. It just happens that with my camera, it's kept on there all the time. The other thing I suppose is you could probably do some bird photography with a monopod, like you see sports photographers do, as they use longer lenses as well. So yeah, if you find that your lens is a bit heavy, that could be a good option for you, particularly if you just staked out at one spot and you know where the birds will be coming in and diving from. That would work quite well. But today I'm just going to handhold. One other consideration you might have when out photographing birds is having to think about what you're going to wear. Clearly some stable footwear, some warm clothes if it's a bit cool, and I guess some people go to the extreme of having camouflage. Oh, did you see that bird behind me? So they wear I guess greens or some camo type tops, and I think that works pretty well. So I'm just, I guess, in some darker clothes, albeit I guess short, so you can see my white little legs. Hopefully that doesn't put the birds off. So the 180 to 600 with the 2x teleconverter is actually a pretty good lens, particularly when, I guess, you've got a tripod, or say the subject is quite close. About 20 meters away or 30 meters away is just perfect. And if the bird is perched and still, you can get some great quality and details out of the photo. I'm not sure whether you saw that bird, but he's in the tree. So in this shot here, we're not quite on the right side of the better light. So the sun's over there and the bird's in between me and the sun. So we're on the shady side, or the shaded side. But the subject is nice and close and still. And so with that, I'm going to position myself on the other side of the tree so that the sun is behind me and the light from the sun hits the bird really nicely. Okay, now that you've considered the light and perhaps where you're roughly going to sit, it's worth just considering your, I guess, vantage point. So if you were to be shooting up at a tree to get the focus of the bird, and then as they swoop down to sort of pan and follow them, clearly you want to look after your neck and your body, so maybe just pick a spot to sit that is just a bit further back, so that you can track them without having to move the camera lens too far. You can probably imagine sitting right under the tree, like on this log over here, that you sort of miss the cues that the birds make prior to them diving. And then I guess you also have to strain and pan quite a long way from up there down to the ground down here. But if we were to sit a bit further away, gosh, there are heaps of kingfishers out today. So I set on this log over here, assuming it's stable enough. Yep. Then it's a smaller distance to pan from the bird in the tree down to the water. So this might be where I hang out for the morning. Okay, so one last consideration, if you have a zoom lens, it's best choosing a place to sit where you can get the best focal reach to a few different spots where the birds might land. So in that case, sitting on this branch over here is a good idea. And if the camera will pan around, oh, seems to have lost me a bit. So if I pan around this way, will it do it? Oh yeah, it seems to be following me. Follow me right round. You can see that they're either going to land here or over there. Alright, so I've learned a few things from other photographers here, a bit of YouTube and some trial and error. My expectations are well adjusted now. And I know that I'm not going to get those close-up shots with the 180-600 and the 2x teleconverter. It's just not the right tool for that job. Earlier in the video, I sort of suggested what it might be quite good for. But now I've taken it off the camera or off the lens, and we'll just use the 180-600 by itself. That f-stop of 6.3 is probably just enough. And those birds should be close enough that perhaps I even could have had the 70-200 on. Yep. So fingers crossed that these shots will look quite good. And I'll put the lens and settings in those images at the end, so you can see which images have come from which setup. for today. That's me. Right, I'll better show my outro that I did earlier. Okay, everybody, I'm going to wrap things up now. It's only 9:26, but this place does get busy as people come for the exact same reasons as I'm here, and they come at the better time when the action is all going. So hopefully you've all enjoyed this wee video. I've put a bit of information in. Hopefully you've learnt something. And as usual, we'll put some photos at the end of the video. So I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. If you could give us a like and subscribe, that would be great. Have a great day. See you guys.